I'm Stephanie from Math with Missy, and I'm super excited to talk to all of you about math groups. Just a little bit about myself. I'm currently in my 5th year teaching middle school math. I started teaching in New York City, teaching 6th grade math, and then I moved to Boston for 2 years and taught 7th grade math there, and now I'm teaching back in my hometown where I grew up, 5th grade math in San Jose, California. So really early on in my teaching career, I quickly came to realize that whole group instruction was just not going to cut it. It was very difficult for us to reach every single student where they were, especially when classes had such a wide range of abilities. In my 2nd year of teaching, we were very lucky in that my school started implementing intervention periods. And so 1 period a day, my students would see a math intervention teacher, and we built out these stations daily. So every single day, they went to 2 different stations, and we had 4 different stations available for students based on where they were. I was super lucky because we had an intervention strategist who built out those station materials. If I were to implement that in my class, I don't think I would have been able to do it. Having to build out 4 different lessons and 4 different activities daily is just not reasonable. Every year, I continued struggling with the thought that I wasn't meeting all of my students where they were at. And so when I met with my math coach this year, she suggested to me implementing math groups. Math groups rotation have allowed me 2 things. 1, it gives me more face time with my students, so I can continue to build those relationships with them. 2, it allows me to ask very targeted questions based on where my students are academically. I also appreciate that with math groups, I've been able to provide a lot more structured work time for my students and also give them opportunities to work and learn from their classmates. Just as a quick caveat, I was honestly very, very nervous to switch up my routine. I'm not someone who does change very well, and when my math coach suggested this, it is a serious overhaul of all the routines and structures that I put into place from the beginning of the year. That's scary. However, I'm very glad that I made that switch. It is definitely an embrace of the unknown, but it works very well and my students enjoy it. So let's get started. There are 3 questions you should ask yourself before starting math groups. 1. How do you want to group students? 2. What materials will you use for students? 3. Where will the different groups move to? When I first started thinking about implementing math groups, these were the 3 questions my coach and I went over together first. Know that my answers to these questions might look different than yours, and that's okay, right? Every single classroom is different, and every group of students are unique. When planning for my class in particular, my 5th grade classes had a wide range of abilities. I had some students who had already mastered 5th grade content, and I had some students who were still working on lower level skills. So as a result, I grouped students based on ability level. I grouped them by taking their most recent assessment scores, ordering them from least to greatest, and splitting it up into 3 groups. Within each of the groups, I also paired up my students. So I split each group in half based on the test scores and then went every other down the line. So that way, students were paired up with someone who could support them within their group. So let's take a look at this group 1 in particular. In group 1, Davina scored the highest on her assessment. So I paired her up with Leslie, who was in the second half of scores in group 1. Then I paired up Jaden, who was second highest in group 1, with Diana, who was in the second half of her group, Vicky with Donovan, Zaira with Fernando, and Trini with Aliana. Know that it's okay if you need to switch students because they cannot work well together. It's fine if their data doesn't match up, but you know your students best. Do what works for them. Each of our rotations lasts about 12 minutes. Group 1 will start with me here at the kidney table. At the kidney table, we'll usually start with our explore problems so that students have the lesson before they move into their independent practice. I normally have them do their explores on our clean slates first, and then after we solve it together on the clean slate, I'll have them copy it back down into their independent practice. This, I think, just gives them more exposure to the question, and so that they are also thinking about the question first before they put it back down onto their paper. While Group 1 is working with me, Group 2 and 3 are working at desks. They are not sitting at their usual desks. I have Group 2 sitting along the far end of my classroom, Group 3 sitting in the middle of the classroom, and this just kind of allows them space from each other. It allows me to differentiate who's in which group quickly from my kidney table, and it also gives them space to not distract each other. At those locations, they are working with their partner pair, and they are working on their independent practice or their explore. When they finish that, they can use their Chromebooks to check answers for their independent practice questions. When the 12 minutes are up, we'll move into the transition. I'll usually do a clap. They'll clap back, and I'll tell them, stack your materials. You have 30 seconds to rotate. 30, and then by the time I get to 0, hopefully they're in their new location starting on the new classwork. In the second rotation, Group 2 is now with me at kidney table. At the kidney table, we will usually do one of two things. I'll either have them go over the explore with me or another challenging independent practice question. It really depends on what the lesson is covering that day. If I feel like they've mastered it, I might not go into the independent practice. I'll move into an extension task of either an error analysis regarding that topic or explain how you solved it. They tend to be writing tasks. So again, it depends on where they are. Then Group 1 moved to desks in second rotation. They're in the first 2 rows. The reason I have them in the first 2 rows is because I have a circle spot in the back of the room. So I try to keep my groups separate and eliminate as much distraction as possible. In desks, Group 1 are working independently on their classwork, and when they're done, they can check their answers online. Group 3 works with their partner pairs. They go over the independent practice question by question so that they understand the entire classwork for that day. And when they're done, they'll move into their Khan Academy assignments or mappers. After another 12 minutes, we'll clap, stack materials, transition again, and we're in our last rotation. In that last rotation, Group 3 will be here with me at kidney table, and I'll usually have some sort of extension work prepared for them. So that extension looks like an error analysis or explain how to solve the question. They are both writing tasks. Most of my Group 3 students have a good understanding of the content itself, but need that push of explaining and deeply understanding the content. And so that's why I prepare the tasks that I do here for them. Groups 2 and Group 1 are both in their circle spots at this point, and they are both going over classwork with partner pairs. Ideally, when they finish in their carpet circles, they move into Khan Academy and they're silent. When those 12 minutes are up, we do our clap, we stack our materials. This time, everyone heads back to their seat and we start wrapping up class. One reason I really like these math groups is that it puts a lot of the responsibility on our students. It does get tricky though when students don't take responsibility for their classwork. And so things that I've done in my classroom is, one, we have group leaders for every single group. to kind of build up the hype around group leaders before we started it, I gave every single student in my classes a chance to be a group leader. So they got to take the clipboard, they got to write good things that happened in their group, things that didn't go as well in their groups, and it kind of built up the responsibility of being a group leader. Once every student had a chance to do that, I put out group leader applications. And so they filled out an application to apply to be a group leader, and I chose one for each group in each class. The group leader application has the name of all the students. In each rotation, a spot for them to say, did they meet voice levels? And also at the very end of rotations, did they complete their classwork? If classwork is not completed, my school has a system where they go to makeup work club Friday after school. We don't grade classwork or homework and don't put it into their grade books, so the logical consequence is that makeup work club Friday after school. And so it kind of puts that responsibility back onto our students as well. Like if you're not doing the work in class, you'll do it some other time. So that's up to you when you do decide to do math groups, how you're going to figure out what those next steps would be for students who don't meet those expectations. I wanted to share 2 products that I use every single day to help my math groups run smoothly. So the first one are my clean slates. The cool thing about these is that they have a white side on this side. On this side, there's a flap here where you can take out the paper. And when we did volume, we slipped in our classwork and just wrote out the dimensions straight onto our classwork using this side. It also has a pen that just clips into this side and a cloth that attaches to the board. So everything is literally on the board. You don't need to worry about it at all. And the kids just take it out of our bins and they crowd around our tables, and we use this basically every single day. The second thing that helps my math groups a lot are these carpet markers from Everyday Educate. These come in a pack of 30, and I like them because 1, they are very colorful and match my current theme of color explosion, and they help me to keep track of where my students should be sitting when they're working in carpet circles. If you look at our partner pairs, that aligns to these colors and the carpet markers. And so the cool thing about this is that this side is Velcro, this side is kind of like smooth material. They stick straight onto the carpet, can be vacuumed, it doesn't move. It is actually pretty difficult to take off, but can still be removed if needed. I had started using tape on the ground. The tape either fell off every day because the janitors were vacuuming, or they never came off the carpet. And so I very quickly switched to these, and 1, they look beautiful in the classroom. 2, they are so easy to use. It helps me to make sure that my kids who will very quickly take advantage of being able to sit wherever they want in circle don't do that, and that it's very easy for them to figure out where they need to sit in their circles. You can download all the information you need to run your math groups from my TPT. So I'm going to upload the PowerPoint, the group leader slides, any extension work that I provide students, at least the templates of those, to my TPT so that it's all accessible in one large, quick, easy bundle.